Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our special council meeting for Wednesday, May the 19th. Did you know today is Personal Support Workers Day? So I just wanted to say a special thank you. If any group deserves their own day, it's certainly that group. And so just a special recognition and thank you to all of the personal support workers in our community. We've got two applications in front of us for zoning bylaw amendments tonight. So according to the Planning Act, we will go through our public meeting. And I'll start by asking if there is, if I could have a mover and a seconder, please, to approve the agenda as circulated. Councillor Waters and Councillor Van Berkel. All those in favor? That is carried. I would note that if you have your phones with you, if you could please put them on mute. And also that we did receive regrets from Councillor Payne this evening, but we are expecting Councillor Orsatti, at least we think we are, but we do have quorum, so we will continue. So the next item on the agenda is disclosures of interest. Seeing none, if one becomes apparent to you, please make it known and we'll make sure that the clerk records it. Next is item 4, which is the planning public meetings. So I'm going to start with a preamble. Thank you to everyone and welcome to the special planning public meeting. Please be advised that this meeting is being live streamed and will be audio and video recorded and shall form part of the record, which will be retained according to the town's retention bylaw. And for more information about the collection, please contact the clerk's office. Also, please remember to mute your audio when you're not speaking. Tonight, we have 2 items on the agenda for information and public consultation purposes. No decisions will be made this evening. Our first item, we will hear from town staff and a representative on behalf of the applicant regarding an application to rezone the subject lands to facilitate the creation of 1 additional lot. After they have spoken, council will have a few questions or provide comments, and then we will have the opportunity for public consultation. Members of the public who have pre-registered will be identified on the speakers list. And when it's your turn, I will ask you to turn on your video and your audio, and you will have 5 minutes to ask your questions or express your concerns or suggestions. Then town staff will respond where possible. If town staff are not able to give you an answer tonight, you will expect that answer in the full report that will come up back to council at a later date. Should anyone need to speak for a second time to identify an issue that has not already been raised or to receive clarification, they may be provided an additional 5 minutes. Should any member of the public watching the live stream wish to make comment during the meeting, they can email or call the clerk's office, where the deputy clerk will be monitoring for input and will provide your comments to council and town staff during the meeting. Any comments received will become part of the public record. If you do not submit your comments during this meeting, you can still send them in and they will be provided to both council and town staff. And you will also be added to the circulation list as an interested party, where you will be kept updated on any future information regarding this item. The email and phone number will be listed on the PowerPoint during the meeting and is also available on tonight's agenda that can be found on the town's website. I will now call on the town clerk, Mr. Parkin, on how the public notice of this meeting was provided.
Thank you, Your Worship. Notice was provided to agencies and to all landowners within 120 meters of the subject lands in accordance with the Ontario regulations and the Planning Act. Signage was posted on the property and notice was provided in the Innisfil Journal on May 13th, 2021, as well as posted on the town's website and on the town's Get Involved Innisfil.ca website for review and commenting.
Thank you. And has any correspondence been received by the clerk's department concerning the proposed amendments?
Your Worship, no correspondence was received by the clerk's office for this application. And just a quick reminder that members of the public can provide comment or register their interest on this application during the meeting or up until council makes a decision on the application by contacting the clerk's office.
Thank you. And we'll now hear from Chris Cannon, planner placemaker, who will provide a high-level summary of the planning context of the proposed amendments. And then after this presentation, we'll hear from James Hunter of Innovative Planning Solutions on behalf of the applicant. And for those who have joined us, please note this is one of two public meetings tonight. So this one is 640 Mapleview Drive, and then the second public meeting will be in regards to Friday Harbor. So Mr. Cannon, whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of council, staff, and the public. This evening's public meeting has discussed the zoning bylaw amendment application for the lands located at 640 Mapleview Drive. The zoning bylaw amendment proposes to rezone a portion of the subject lands to facilitate a future rural residential severance and recognize the deficiency of the lot area minimum requirements of the agricultural general zone in the zoning bylaw. Next slide, please. The lands subject to this zoning bylaw amendment application are known municipally as 640 Mapleview Drive and are located on the north side of Mapleview Drive, east of 25 Side Road. The lands are approximately 19.2 hectares in size. The larger portion of the lands are proposed to be rezoned from agricultural general to agricultural general exception to recognize the existing lot area minimum deficiency as required by the town zoning bylaw. The small portion of the lands noted in yellow is approximately 3,000 square meters and are proposed to be rezoned residential rural to accommodate the future severance for one single detached dwelling and accessory structures. Next slide, please. Planning staff have reviewed the proposed zoning bylaw amendment with respect to the planning policy document shown on the slide, which is provided in attachment 2 of the town staff report. The Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority has been circulated and will provide further comments on the LSPP conformity. Simcoe County has been circulated and have advised that they have no concern with the proposed rezoning application. Staff note that with regard to the town's official plan, the proposed amendment to facilitate a future severance on the portion of lands west of the smaller lot, 650 Mapleview Avenue, are designated within the rural area designation. This designation permits lot creation uses subject to criteria noted in attachment 2 of the staff report. The application is proposing site-specific provisions in the zoning bylaw for the lands. Next slide, please. To review and consider all public, council, department, and agency comments and report back to council on the recommendation at a future council meeting, these are our next steps. Notice will be provided to all who requested notification and or submitted written correspondence. Next slide, please. And that's all I have for this evening, Your Worship.
Mr. Cannon. Next, we will hear from Mr. Hunter of Innovative Planning Solutions. And Mr. Hunter will ask that you keep your presentation to 10 minutes or less to allow more time for questions from the public. Whenever you're ready, sir.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council, public, and those in attendance tonight. My name is James Hunter. I'm here on behalf of Innovative Planning Solutions for a zoning bylaw amendment application for 640 Mapleview Drive East in the town of Innisfil. Next slide, please. I'd like to thank Chris for the introduction. I'll just briefly overview the lands on this slide. Again, they are located at 640 Maple View Drive East, and this is adjacent to the Sandy Cove settlement area located at the north boundary. The lands currently hold the 262 meters of frontage along Maple View Drive and an area of 19.5 hectares. The lands are densely treed and a large parcel of land, and they currently contain an existing driveway to the property, which provides access to the owner's current residence. Attached to the residence is a home office and attached shop for the owner's earth moving business. In addition, the dwelling does contain registered second dwelling units. The lands subject to rezoning are shown in the bottom left with the yellow slide outline, sorry. And these lands are primarily vacant and contain sparse trees. Next slide. The subject lands are located in an area with a wide range and diversity of land uses. To the north are agricultural and rural land uses, and these are zoned agricultural general AG and residential rural RR. To the east are residential rural lots, forested lands, and other rural land uses. Further east are residential lots along Warnica Avenue and Orchard Avenue. These are zoned agricultural general, residential rural, and residential R1. To the south are residential lots along Maple View Drive East and subdivisions, and this is part of the Sandy Cove settlement area. All these lands are zoned R1 for residential land uses. To the west are agricultural, residential rural lots, and rural land uses, and they are zoned agricultural general and residential rural. I'm just going to point out on the slide here, you can see the existing lot fabric on the image far to the left, along with the subject lands facing north and south with the yellow outline. Shows a closer image of the land uses and residential along Maple View Drive. Next slide. The subject zoning bylaw amendment application would provide the appropriate zoning to facilitate the creation of one new residential rural lot, and this would be subject to a future consent application. The severed lot would contain a frontage of approximately 40 meters in an area of approximately 0.3 hectares, and this is shown in yellow. And the retained lands would contain a frontage of approximately 222 meters in an area of 19.2 hectares, and this is shown in green. The proposed lot would be consistent with the other residential rural lots in the area and on the north side of Maple View Drive, and it would complement the residential lots within the Sandy Cove settlement area. The new lot proposed would meet all requirements of the residential rural zone. Next slide, please. On this slide here, you can see the lands to be rezoned and subject to the future severance shown in a blue outline on the property. The intent of this application is to rezone these lands from the agricultural general to the residential rural zone. The rezoning would be facilitated through a future consent application, and the balance of the lands would remain in the current agricultural general AG zone. In addition, an exception would be added to recognize the deficient lot area that exists on the subject lands. 19.5 hectares exist where 40 hectares is required. Next slide. As part of the brief overview of the county official plan, the subject lands are predominantly designated as rural, with a limited portion designated as greenlands along the frontage of Maple View Drive. Limited residential development is permitted and supported within the rural designation, including lot creation, and the proposed development would maintain the rural character of the area and the intent of the county's land use designation. Next slide. Regarding the town of Innisfil official plan, the lands subject to the rezoning are designated rural area by the town's OP on Schedule B land use, and the rural area designation aims to provide a full range of land uses to support the rural community and which fit in with the rural character. A full range of land uses is encouraged by the town's official plan, and this is to support longevity of rural areas and contribute to the creation of complete communities. Permitted uses within the designation includes one single detached residence on a lot. And for the rural residential use, the maximum lot size is restricted to 1 hectare in size. The proposed lot would meet this criteria, and we're proposing a land holding of approximately 0.3 hectares. The proposed lot would meet all criteria of the town's official plan for the creation of a new lot, and it would maintain the intent of the rural area land use designation. Next slide. As part of our zoning application, there was a number of other considerations that we evaluated. As part of this, an arborist assessment report was completed for the subject application. The purpose of this evaluation was to evaluate composition, character, and health of existing trees on the property, and also to consider the tree preservation on the property. The evaluation and analysis was based off field observations and determined that the proposed lot is comprised of primarily invasive species, which is not desirable in Ontario's natural woodlands ecosystem. As part of the application, we would remove the invasive non-tree species and replace these with native ones, which ultimately would improve the woodlands feature and have a positive impact on the natural feature itself. The new lot would also have direct access where it's suitable off Mapleview Drive, and this is capable of carrying the additional traffic that would be generated. And the proposed lot was considered through a septic bed suitability brief, and it determined that the lot size provided soil conditions could accommodate a suitable septic bed. Next slide. In summary, the purpose of the application tonight is a zoning bylaw amendment. This would rezone the portion of land shown in yellow from the agricultural general AG to the residential rural RR zone. Future consent application would create one new residential rural lot, and this would meet all requirements of the residential rural zone. The application itself meets all criteria for the creation of a new residential lot under the rural area designation, and the town of Innisfil official plan does encourage cost-effective development, land use patterns, including suitable residential development all through lot creation. And the proposed rezoning and future severance would maintain the land uses, complement the rural character and lot fabric of the area. Collectively, this all supports the creation of complete communities. And the application itself would conform with goals and objectives of provincial and municipal legislation. Thank you, Your Worship. That concludes my presentation, and I will turn it back over to yourself for further questions from public or staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. Questions from council first. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. A few questions around the total area. At least I'm not too opposed to the severing of this lot or lots at front Mapleview. My concern is the huge amount of green space that not only this lot but other lots working their way down to Lake Simcoe propose as green space for Innisfil residents. And so my question is considering that it's no longer agricultural land, that why hasn't the town planners designated this some sort of green space for a good portion of it that would take it out of potential further development down the road?
Thank you, Councillor. I'll jump in there, Chris. The applicant of this property, he owns the retained parcel, as you're referring to as the prime, I guess you call environmental lands. When they originally went to develop this portion of the property, they had environmental studies done. As part of that, that's why the existing dwelling is located in the location that it is. In addition to that, as part of our application, that's why the lot is located along Mapleview Drive, and we have restricted the lot size. So we are going in line with the designation that's on the lands. However, our application does seek to keep all development outside of this. In addition to that, there's no development that would be proposed within these environmental features in the future. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Does it answer your question, Councillor? You're on mute.
I would like to hear from our own planners.
Sure. Mr. Cannon?
Your Worship, Councillor Waters, in the future, we can rezone, or as part of this application, we can rezone a portion of the lands as environmental protection. And those lands will be protected. We also have the forest management plan that's going on right now, as you're aware of. And as a part of that particular process, we can figure out other ways in which we can protect the lands between these lands and the lands to our southern border.
A follow-up?
Go ahead.
The reason I'm inquiring about this, because there has been some concern from lakeshore residents along, I think it's Crescent Harbor, about the property which is adjacent to them. And this abuts all that other beautiful green space of wetlands and habitat that we have there. And there has been concerns, residents, that the new owner is planning, he says he's only planning one residential home, but there was concern about subdivisions. And so I'm just generally concerned about the whole area, and that how do we best protect that from subdivisions going in here. And I realize it has not that much to do with one single lot, but it is attached to all these other. And I just don't want this to be the wedge that opens the door to saying that, now that we've got a couple of lots here, we can look at subdividing these greater portions with somebody else with more money to purchase them.
Through your worship to Council Waters. This is a small pocket of lands that are designated rural residential, or sorry, rural area. Through the municipal comprehensive review, we may look at expanding the Sandy Cove area, but expanding into the environmental lands is not something that I think that the town or the county or the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority would be looking to incorporate into this municipal comprehensive review to expand the Sandy Cove settlement area.
So these lands do have an environmental designation on the back on the back lots of all these?
So can I just interrupt? So we have to we can have a
Yeah.
broader discussion at another point, but tonight
Sure.
to focus on the application that is in front of us. So, what is the designation on this particular lot? And then, Councillor, we can have a broader discussion about the whole area at another time.
Give me an inch, I'll take a mile.
Is that okay, Mr. Cannon? Is that appropriate?
So your worship, absolutely. We can have another conversation, whether it be in the public forum or offline. Either way.
That works. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. I thought quite a bit about this application today as I kind of read the report and looked at the zoning. I get a little confused when we talk about zoning being both agricultural general and rural residential. So the property that we're talking about, as far as I could figure out, it's agriculture general. Is that correct?
Mr. Cannon?
To your worship, yes, the property is currently zoned agricultural general. What this application is proposing is to rezone a small portion of the lands to be able to create a rural residential lot. I would very much liken it to 1988 7th line behind the municipal campus. We did somewhat similar approvals for that particular land. There's not much rural land left rural area designated land in the official plan. So if you're worried about taking away farmland or things of that nature, then I think this is probably maybe one of the last ones.
Follow up, Councillor.
So that's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting, Chris, that you mentioned the 7th line, because that was exactly what I was going to bring up. My recollection was that that was zoned rural, and these zoning designations are based solely on historical soil maps. And that is kind of the base that we have to protect farmland. And it does. So what we found when we agreed to sever those lots was because it was zoned rural, that means the soil there was, I think the number, it's less than a class 3. I think it is 4 or 5. You might correct me on that. But this land that we're talking about, if it's agriculture general, it's zoned class higher than a 3. So I get a little confused when we're allowed to sever lands that are being farmed, but just because we have an old soil test, a soil map that designates it rural because of a 50-year-old database, and it's okay to sever those lands that are being farmed. But now it's also okay to sever agricultural general lands that aren't being farmed, but the soil could be farmed. So that's where I struggle a little bit, and I'm wondering if you can comment on that.
If you can comment now, but also, Mr. Cannon, if you could deal with it in more depth in the report that comes back to council, because we're not making decisions here tonight, but perhaps cover more of what Councillor Ices is talking about in the report that would come back, but happy to get comments tonight as well.
Through your worship to Councillor Ices, the agricultural lands will be reviewed through the municipal comprehensive review process. And we will be reporting back on that process, as well as I will go in depth whenever I make a recommendation to council at a later date. Thank you.
So just maybe a final comment.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I struggle with, we have a 19 hectare piece that's zoned agricultural general because of the soil, and we're going to allow that. So that, to me, that should apply to the town, to everybody who has that. I'm not sure why we would make that exception just because of the use that's being done on it right now. So that will be my final comment. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Orsatti, did I see your card? I saw your cat was very interested in this meeting as well.
My apologies.
Don't apologize.
Okay. A question in regards to the severance being the size of the lot, because that's, I know it's matching, looks like it's matching the other one by looking at the drawing that's here by IPS Consulting, but that's a huge portion. When you look across the street, it's equivalent to 3 residential homes, and I'm just wondering why it's necessary to make it that large for a residential lot. And my second question is, if the zoning is approved later to go from agricultural to residential rural, once it's residential rural, can that later residential rural lot offer any retail services on their property, such as garden centers, selling plants, etc.? And I ask that because it reminds me of a similar situation on the 20th, just south of Lockhart, north of Lockhart. Thank you.
Through your worship to Councillor Orsatti, the rural residential zone that's being proposed is the only zone that would be permitted within the confines of the official plan. On the south side of the road, we have a settlement area, and those lots are able to be much smaller. The official plan allows the lots on the south side to be smaller, and on the north side of Mapleview Drive, those lands have to be much larger. That's why the size is being proposed within the confines of this application. Your second question would lead to an urban area expansion to be able to, sorry, you were talking about selling plants and organics and things like that on the property. Absolutely. Yeah, we would encourage that as far as a rural lot, and it's permitted within the zoning bylaw within rural residential zones.
Follow up, Councillor?
Thank you. So just clarification, on a residential rural lot, they may offer a retail opportunity of selling plants. Just looking at the size of the lot and thinking of potential from it just being a residential house, personal use.
Through your worship, Chris, do you mind if I jump in for a moment? Thank you. Through your worship to Councillor Orsatti, I'd just like to jump in and respond to this question immediately. The applicant has a growing family, and the intent of this lot is to build a new house for their family. They have no intention of doing any other use. And that's why we're specifically zoning this to the residential rural zone to permit a single detached dwelling. I'd also just like to address Councillor Icy's question quickly. The lands have been historically zoned and essentially designated for an agriculture use. However, that has not been the case. We have two different scenarios here where it's agricultural lot. However, given the features of the woodlands and vegetation on the property, these lands have not historically been farmed. In addition to that, the application does propose to bring a new lot outside of lands that could be potentially farmed. But however, ultimately, due to the features that are present on this property, that is very unlikely, and the clients have no intention of that. That's why you're seeing a lot of these areas maintained with forest, and it's part of a larger woodlands feature. So in this case, we are proposing the law in an appropriate location where there would be no impact on this, and we would maintain the features together. Thank you for that comment.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Thank you. I have a question here. Under our new policy where we can allow 3 dwellings on a lot now, my concern that you say this family is growing, that it's quite a sizable residential lot, rural residential. Is there a possibility in the future he could have, I see the picture next door, there's 2 buildings. I'm not sure if they're 2 houses or a shop and a house, but I do know we're allowed 3 residential buildings on a lot. Could this happen to this lot with 3, and then in case 2 of them being rented out?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Ms. Nordstrom, I don't believe we've made decisions on the 3rd dwelling yet, have we?
That's correct, to you, Your Worship. We haven't brought back a recommendation report on our 3rd dwellings or accessory dwelling units to permit for a 3rd dwelling unit, but we can certainly look at what the implications of the proposed zoning that we brought to the public meeting recently on that, and what implications that would be for this property if it were brought back in a recommendation report.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
That was my concern. I know we haven't passed it yet, but I've already had people approach me and say, look, if I buy this lot here, can I get 3 dwellings on it? So people are already looking at what council's doing down the road. So we have to be aware of that very, very thoroughly when we're looking at expanding a rural lot this size. That's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Waters?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a very quick question. I was looking at the map. There's a lot of equal size beside the ones going to be created. I noticed there's 2 dwellings on it. One dwelling seems to teeter on the boundary of the 2 lots. Are these both lots owned by the same individual, or are they 2 different owners? And if that's the case, is there an issue with this building being too close to the lot line, the existing building? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. You stole my question. Mr. Hunter.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, the councillor. In this case, it's a bit misleading due to the aerial. It's not an accurate representation of what's on the property. Our client does not own the 650 Mapleview Drive, which is shown on the slides located to the, it's to the east. And that is currently, it's a shop located in the rear of their backyard. So as part of our application, we would maintain all of the required setbacks for a new dwelling. I believe that the existing structure does meet it, but I cannot speak to that as we are not representing that applicant there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Seeing none, thank you very much. Typically at this time we would hear from the public. However, we do not have any pre-registered speakers for the public consultation portion of this meeting. We will now ask the clerk if any person has emailed or phoned in their comments during this meeting. Madam Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. No, we have not had any comments provided during the meeting.
Thank you. So now we will move to the recommendations to receive the staff report. That's DSR 072-21 and any comments provided this evening. So I'll ask if there are any further comments, and if not, could I get a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that's on the screen? Councillor Fowler and Councillor Waters, all those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you to everyone who's taken the time to watch this live stream meeting and presentation regarding the proposed amendment. If you've not made oral or written submissions in regards to this proposal, before a decision is reached, you should be aware that the local planning appeal tribunal may dismiss your appeal. Anyone who wishes to provide comment may still do so and may also register as an interested party to be contacted before this application is further considered by council. Please contact clerk's office at innisfil.ca as shown on the screen. And thank you for everyone who was present for this and participated in the first public meeting. Now we will move on to planning public meeting number 2. And which is a proposed application to amend the Town of Innisfil zoning bylaw number 029-05 to rezone the subject lands known as Friday Harbor Resort. No decision will be made this evening. As with the first meeting, we will hear from town staff and then the representatives of the applicant. And after they have spoken, council may have a few questions or provide comment, and then we will have the public consultation. Members of the public who have pre-registered will be identified on a speaker's list. And when it is your turn, I will ask you to turn on your video and your audio, and you'll have 5 minutes to ask your questions or express your concerns, and then town staff will provide a response where possible. Should any member of the public watching the live stream wish to make comment during the meeting, they can email or call clerk's services, where the deputy clerk will be monitoring for input and will provide your comments to council and town staff during the meeting. Any comments received will become part of the public record. If you do not submit your comments during the meeting, you will still have time to send in comments, and they will be provided to council and to planning staff. You will also be added to the circulation list as an interested party where you will be kept updated on any future information regarding this item. The email and phone number will be listed on the PowerPoint during the meeting and is also available on tonight's agenda that can be found on the town's website. We will now hear from the town clerk on how the public notice of this meeting was provided.
Thank you, Your Worship. Notice for this public meeting was provided to agencies and to approximately 800 individual properties in the Big Bay Point area in accordance with the Ontario regulations and the Planning Act. Signage was also posted on the property, and notice was provided in the Innisfil Journal and posted on the town's website and on the town's Get Involved Innisfil.ca for review and commenting. In addition, the notice for this meeting was provided by email to resort residential unit purchasers, owners, and business operators.
Thank you. Has any correspondence been received by clerk's office concerning the proposed amendments?
Yes, Your Worship, we have received 9 pieces of correspondence, and I'll quickly list those. The first and second are from Shell Goldstein, who submitted 2 letters dated May 10th and May 12th, stating opposition to the proposed application. The third item from Jinzi Zhang, dated May 12th, expressing the need to address the amenity gap at Friday Harbor before new residential complex takes occupancy. Fourth, from Michael White, providing comments regarding the proposed application. Fifth item from Amanda Villers and Ben Onuki, dated May 12th, stating opposition to the application. Sixth item from Kevin Kennerney, dated May 12th, expressing opposition to the application. Seventh item from Lawrence Glazer on behalf of several residents in Big Bay Point, dated May 14th, requesting an adjustment to the resort traffic plan to be addressed to address increased traffic issues. The eighth item from Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, dated May 19th, 2021, providing comments on their review of the proposed application. And the last item from Michaela Belisle, dated May 19th, expressing opposition to the application. And Your Worship, just a quick reminder again, for those watching, members of the public may provide their comment or register interest regarding this application during the meeting or up until council makes a decision on the application by contacting the clerk's office. Thank you.
Thank you. And council has received all of that correspondence, except for I'm thinking the last one, but I'm sure we'll get a copy, or maybe I just haven't checked my email soon enough. Councillor Waters.
Just a question to the clerk. When regards to Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority, generally he gave a position of what the letters all said previous to that, but I didn't hear for the public what was the response from the Conservation Authority.
I believe there was no objection to the application.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear from Stephen Montgomery, Senior Planner, who will provide a high-level summary of the planning context of the proposed amendments.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of council staff, and the public, the purpose of this public meeting is to consider a proposed zoning bylaw amendment on lands known municipally as 3999 Friday Drive, legally described as Block 1, Plan 51M997, and the application was filed by Friday Harbor Village, Inc. Next slide, please. Subject lands comprising the marina village of Friday Harbor, which are shown above on the slide, are about 63 hectares in area with about 788 meters of frontage on Big Bay Point Road. They are located south of Big Bay Point Road and west of West Street in the Big Bay Point shoreline area of Innisfil. Site A and B, shown on the map, are the lands subject to this proposed zoning bylaw amendment application. Combined, they are approximately 2.5 hectares or just over a hectare each. Site A on the west side of the marina basin is currently zoned for a 6-story hotel, and it's proposed to be rezoned to allow an up to 6 and 2-story resort residential building with a 1-story lobby. Site B on the northeast side of the marina is proposed for an up to 6-story hotel in the south part, as well as an up to 5-story resort residential building, which would be allowed in the orange area on the north part of Site B, intended as a transition to the lower densities to the north. Changes to some of the setback requirements on the upper stories of the buildings are also proposed. More details would be provided by the applicant in their presentation. Staff note the original Ontario Municipal Board decision for approval of resort documents in 2007 approved the 6-story hotel locations south of Site B on the east side of the marina. The hotel was subsequently moved to Site A in 2015 through a rezoning application by Friday Harbor and is now proposed to be moved north of the original hotel site on the northeast. Next slide, please. In terms of supporting materials, the following has been submitted by the applicant: a planning opinion report, a parking and traffic review letter, functional service compliance letter, letters from consultants respecting review of development impacts on natural heritage, water quality of Lake Simcoe and well impacts, and a copy of the draft zoning bylaw amendment as proposed. Next slide, please. Town staff and the town's peer review consultants, Sorensen Gravely Lowe's, are reviewing the application under the town's community strategic plan, as well as provincial policies such as the provincial policy statement or PPS, the growth plan, Lake Simcoe protection plan, County of Simcoe official plan, Innisfil official plan, the Big Bay Point Resort secondary plan, and the zoning bylaw that governs the resort, which is proposed to be amended, which is number 02905. More details on this review are found in staff report DSR 07321, which is on the agenda this evening. Next slide, please. As of today's date, in terms of agency comments received, the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority states no objections to the zoning bylaw amendment, having reviewed the materials submitted. There are no comments as yet from the other agencies as of the date of this public meeting. Next slide. Public comments include concerns about the height of the hotel, concerns about potential visibility from surrounding areas and light pollution. There were concerns expressed about traffic on Big Bay Point Road, speeding and safety and resort access coming into the resort from the north, as well as the timing of traffic improvements. There were suggestions made to mitigate speed and traffic on the road. Big point. There are concerns about the traffic impact of loading and service areas of the Site A building and impacts of the building on future units that are selling adjacent to it, as well as some concerns about in general about the increased development of the resort, the effects on the lifestyle of the surrounding community, and the values to the Bay Point area, and impacts on water air quality and noise. Lastly, there were a letter of concern expressed about proposed Site A resort residential building going relative to the number of available amenities in the resort village. Next slide, please. So staff and peer review consultants are reviewing conformity to provincial, county, and local policies as stated, as well as the timing of delivery of the remaining phase 2 elements, such as the hotel and resort conference center facilities, the resort amenity plan, and the resort rental program, which are required before phase 3. The impacts of the hotel relocation on resort function and the view planes of the building are being reviewed, as well as the requested height transition to the north and west of Site B, the built form of both Site A and B, and the impacts of the proposed changes may have on traffic and traffic management. Last slide, please. The applicant's presentation will provide more details, but in terms of next steps, staff will review and consider all the comments received and report back to council at a future council meeting recommending whether the proposed zoning bylaw amendment should be approved. Notice would be provided respecting when this report is returning to council for consideration to all who requested notification and or submitted written correspondence for this public meeting, and that includes the written correspondence on the Get Involved Innisfil.ca website, as well as all the emails and letters received. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. We'll now hear from representatives of the applicant concerning this application. We'd ask if you could please keep your presentation to 10 minutes or less to allow lots of time for questions and comments from both the public and members of council. So we have Ms. Shindrak, Mr. Genist, and Mr. Roustem. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Your Worship. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and members of council, town staff, and ladies and gentlemen. My name is Cheryl Shindrak, and I am Executive Vice President at Geranium. I'm pleased to be joined this evening by Mr. Hanny Roustem, President and CEO of Friday Harbor Resort, and Mr. John Genet, the Professional Land Use Planner, working on this file. He's with Malone Given Parsons. I want to acknowledge at the outset Mr. Jim DeGasperis, the Managing Partner for Friday Harbor, whose unwavering commitment to Friday Harbor, to its excellence and to its continued progress, continues unabated, even during these pandemic times, as you will hear a little bit further in our presentation. And I also want to acknowledge the-
Ms. Shindrak, we've lost your sound. You don't show that you're muted, but we heard the part about Mr. DeGasperis, and then after that, we lost your sound.
How is this?
That's good.
Okay. I was just going to also acknowledge the technical team that is whose material has been referenced by Mr. Montgomery, who are also obviously part of the submission before you this evening. So as Mr. Montgomery noted, and as Mr. Genet will further explain, the purpose of the application before you this evening is to reorganize the uses found essentially at the bookends on the boardwalk, shifting the hotel use to the east end as a result of moving the amphitheater to the pier and shifting the resort residences to the west end. The application seeks a slight increase in the phase 2 resort unit permissions to allow the resort residential building at the west end to proceed in advance of the hotel and conference uses. There is no change to the approved development footprint, or to the overall approved unit count. I'd like to now call on Mr. Roustem, who will share with you what's new at the resort. And before he starts, I want to just say that Mr. Roustem joined Friday Harbor in January of this year. He comes to us from the hotel industry, most recently the Hazelton in the Yorkville area of Toronto. He's an experienced hotelier and, I must note, very capably leading the operations team at Friday Harbor. So Hanny, over to you.
Cheryl, good evening and thank you so much. You can definitely call me Hani. You're making me sound like very important. Your Worship, good evening, Mr. Deputy Mayor, council members, town staff members, and member of the public. I really want to thank you for giving me and giving us the opportunity to present to you today. Cheryl, you wanted me to really cover what's new at Friday Harbor, and my answer to you is like what's not new at Friday Harbor. I think there's despite a very challenging period of time that we're all, as a humankind, as a country, as an economy going through, a lot continued to happen at Friday Harbor, and I think this is great for the community, and I do believe the town in general. I want to start with the retail. As we all know, we have an amazing boardwalk overlooking the marina at Friday Harbor. That retail is divided into two phases. Phase one that was completed last year. Phase two, as you can see from the screen here, includes a number of retailers that they are opening up, and preparing to open up for this summer, including Crocodoodle, which is really an arts and craft brand or store for families and kids. Povengers, another store that just opened lately. Sweet Harbor, a store that will sell toys, ice cream, and similar items for kids and families as well. Feather and Stone, this is a fashion brand that is joining us here at Friday Harbor. Ren Sushi, just to give a bit of variety to the dining experience, to either the our immediate community at Friday Harbor, or maybe the larger one in the town of Innisfil and beyond. Marine Room, it's a gastro pub, in addition to a number of other stores opening, including a steakhouse, a French bakery, a juice bar, a hair and salon spa that we're working on. And I'm not quite sure if you heard about Zaza Coffee that comes from Yorkville in Toronto. So that's really exciting there. I'm going to move a bit to the Lake Club, an impressive building, and I'll hope I'll have the opportunity, and I'm sure we're going to have the opportunity to welcome you all to really visit it, and hopefully I'll get the honor of really walking you around the building. This building is meant to really be for our community members. As you can see, it's an impressive structure. Close to $35 million in investment there. It includes a restaurant, a bar. There's a beautiful swimming pool that's taken shape, as you can see it down there. It includes the kids' play area. There's a beautiful gym there. So that is, getting ready for launch. I know it took us a bit of time to get here, but we want to really do everything up to standards and expectation. And I think I hope when we'll get the opportunity to welcome you for a short visit, you'll see the quality of the build and the structure itself. I'm going to move right now to the amphitheater on the pier. You know that Friday Harbor includes the largest man-made marina in Canada. And in the middle of the marina, we have built this beautiful structure called the pier. It's an inspiring, impressive vision. Cheryl, can I ask you to go back one slide just quickly? I mean, no, one back. I just want to really get the Her Worship and the council members just to see the beauty of this building over here. An amazing sail in the middle there. It's close to $5.5 million of an investment there. It will include a bar. It will include a stage to which we'll be able to really welcome and showcase local talent, but then also provide entertainment to our community members. Cheryl, next slide, please. It shows few slides here ahead that shows the pier in the stage of construction. These pictures are taken by drone a little bit earlier than now because we just advanced and we're getting closer to the opening. Cheryl, may I ask you to move one slide? Exactly. That's another drone. And you might not really see
Now we've lost you, Henny. You were good until just a few minutes ago, just when you turned on the.
You're back.
Okay, I'm back. Thank you. Cheryl, may I ask you kindly to just move one slide forward, please? Exactly. So you might not be seeing any construction on the pier as we continue working very hard on finishing the foundation, but at the same time, and to accelerate bringing this concept together, you can see some of the modular structures that are being constructed as we speak right now at the site near Niagara. They'll be transported to the pier, and I think culminating to this beautiful and inspiring vision that I showed you a little bit earlier. Amazing, as you can see over here. I can't really wait, honestly, to really welcome you all and other members of the public to join us there. Great, and yes, Cheryl, thank you so much. I was really excited to really showcase this specific slide over here. That's the pier at night. As you can see, we're really we have added some lighting fixture just to really elevate that experience and the visual experience too. Cheryl, thanks so much. I want to really move into another thing happening at Friday Harbor. This is our Friday Harbor Resort Administration Center. It's our building, which is going to be on Sunreef Avenue to the northeastern side of the plot. Again, a key investment for us to really bring together the team under one roof. As you know, achieving excellence and delivering on excellence, it's a matter of culture. And it's really great that we'll be able to put our team together. But the exciting thing as well, we're going to have like an office for a town staff there. So we're able to really keep the communication with the town tight and coordinated on all issues. So this is very exciting, and we're aiming to really have this building ready by mid next year, May, June. Cheryl, I think the traffic roundabout is something exciting that probably we want to share as well. But Cheryl, let me pass the baton to you. But before I do that, I just want to really thank you, Your Worship, Mr. Deputy Mayor, the council members, and everyone else for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. Cheryl, the baton is yours.
Okay, thank you, Hani. And so the traffic roundabout, we wanted to give you an update. As council well knows, this item was on your agenda last week in terms of advancing the timing of it. We're looking forward to working with your staff to finalize the design. Here you see a conceptual rendering of what the roundabout may look like, but we will be working with your team to finalize that design and build it to improve the traffic flow in and around the resort. The rental management program, I also want to update council, continues to progress. Hani and his team are working very hard on that. We're all looking forward to having that launched, as well as the resort amenity master plan. That work is well underway, as well as plans for the tennis academy center in the north part of the resort. I want to say a few minutes now about, talk a few minutes about the hotel industry. Hani and I have put this together. Obviously, he knows the hotel industry very well. And as was mentioned earlier, we are seeking relief on the timing of the hotel component. And this is because the hotel sector has been severely impacted by COVID. The next couple of slides will illustrate that. These are drawn from market economists and observers of the hotel and hospitality sector. The slide on the left-hand side shows the economy as expressed as GDP, and the forecast, which is the black line, and the actual, which is the blue lines. And you can see in 2020 how the economy really shrank. The slide on the right-hand side again illustrates that, but on a sector by sector basis. So the overall economy shrank by 3.6%. But if you look down towards the bottom of that slide, you see the impact on the accommodation, restaurant, and entertainment sectors, and that is closer to 40 to 50%. No sector was hit harder than the hotel and hospitality sector. This is a report by the American Hotel and Lodging Association. And again, it talks about the hotel industry having experienced its most devastating year on record in 2020. Lowest occupancy, massive job losses, and hotel closures. The hotel sector was one of the first sectors affected by the pandemic, and it is projected to be one of the last to recover. The expectations are that travel, which is a very big part of the hotel and hospitality sector, is not expected to return to what we saw in 2019 until 2024. Closer to home, the Financial Post reported in February of this year. Again, you can see on the right-hand side the drop in occupancy rates in hotels, and also rates plummeting. So again, another source just reporting on the stress that the hotel sector industry continues to be under. This slide speaks to, again, the hotel sector in Canada, and noting as well that the conference world is undergoing a change, and that virtual conferences have taken the place in many instances for in-person conferences. And if that continues to be the case, we should expect a structural change in the need for conference space on a go-forward basis. So I want to conclude this particular segment by saying that at a time when so many businesses have scaled back or gone dark, municipalities we know are dealing with reduced revenues and increased costs. The managing partner at Friday Harbor, Jim DeGasperis, with the support of his partnership, is committed to staying the course. And Hani described the amenities that are continuing to be built and continuing to be developed. Those amenities, the resort administration center, the pier, the amphitheater at the pier, and the lake club amount to an investment of $60 million in the town. The application before you today is intended to allow for continued evolution of the resort and further investment. So the application builds on the work that FOREC did, and you've seen this slide before in an earlier presentation by us, the reimagining of the boardwalk and repositioning some of these uses. With the shift of the amphitheater to the pier, it made sense from our point of view, and the experts advising us that the hotel be located where that amphitheater was previously located, and therefore opening up the site at the west end for resort residential, sitting in between the High Point and the Aquarius buildings and the Lake Club building. It has been designed to protect the views that the High Point and Aquarius buildings enjoy, and you'll see this a little bit further as we get into our presentation. I'll call on Mr. Janae now to speak to the actual application.
Thank you, Cheryl, and good evening, Mayor Dolan, Deputy Mayor Davidson, members of council, staff, and the public. As Cheryl noted, the proposed amendments are to realize the reimagination of the boardwalk area. As you've heard, for Site B, the intention is to permit the hotel use with its 6-story permission and 5-story residential in the north part of the site, also with permission for the hotel use there as well in the orange part of Site B. These would replace the current zones which permit the now relocated theater and 4-story resort residential at the north part of the site. For Site A, the intention is to replace the current 6-story hotel permission with one permitting the 2 to 6-story resort residential Sunseeker building. So in effect, just changing the use permitted within the already accepted height and below. Further, to modify the zoning bylaws requirement for a 1.5 meter setback for each story above a fourth to permit a more flexible response to site context. And finally, to permit the Sunseeker building to proceed to construction as soon as possible with a parallel site plan application as permitted by changing the phase 2 unit count to 1,500 units, consistent with the flexibility afforded in the resort secondary plan. Thank you. These amendments would implement, again, the strategic recommendation from the FOREC analysis, as you see on the screen, with the key pieces being the hotel use, the Sunseeker building to the west, and the relocated event space at the pier. Next slide, please. This view shows the Sunseeker building in its Site A context at the west end of the boardwalk. Its key elements include this two-story form on the east part of the site, providing for views to the marina and the lake from the Aquarius building to the north. The north-south alignment for the higher building forms on the west part create a view corridor between them for the high part building to its north. Further, the design utilizes a one-story lobby and a two-story podium to complement and extend the feel of the retail podium at the boardwalk to the immediate east. And then you'll also see the building's incorporation of courtyard spaces connecting to the boardwalk. Next slide, please, Sharon. These two cross sections illustrate the manner in which the Sunseeker building is comparable in height to the boardwalk condos to the east, as shown in section AA, the cross section at the top of the page. Shows also how the building provides views over and through its forms, as shown also in section AA, and is comparable in height to the Aquarius and High Point buildings to its north, shown in the BB section. And that also shows how the Sunseeker building is below sight lines from Big Bay Point Road, and so not visible to off-site views from that road. Next slide, please, Sharon.
Having some difficulty advancing the slide. Yeah, sorry.
Go. Just a slow fade. This sketch view by FOREC shows the Site B hotel and resort residential buildings in their context, defined in part by the permitted 6-story building to the south, to the right side of the image, and the boardwalk condos to the west on the left side. I think we should jump to the next one, Cheryl. More cross sections, these showing how the hotel and resort residential buildings are comparable in height to their neighboring buildings, give prominence to the hotel use, and provide for appropriate transitions to lower built forms. Again, are not visible from Big Bay Point Road, as screened by the open space buffer and intervening buildings. That's shown in the section CC at the top of the screen. And further, they're not visible, neither building is visible from West Street to the east, as screened by intervening topography and vegetation. Next slide, please, Sharon. So in summary, from a planning perspective, the requested amendments to the bylaw conform to the planning framework defined by the resort secondary plan and town, county, and provincial plans and policies, and do so with no anticipated offsite impacts. For the phase 2 adjustment, they respond to the need for flexibility that was anticipated in and is permitted by the resort secondary plan. They permit the continued evolution of the resort and its delivery of economic benefit to Innisfil and the larger community. And in doing so, and in my opinion, represent good planning in the public interest. And with that, I'll ask the next slide and pass the microphone back to you.
Thank
Chair.
you. Thank you, John. Your worship and members of council, this is a rendering of the Sunseeker building at the west end of the boardwalk. Street view, obviously looking north. So you can see the single story lobby stepping up to the 2-story, stepping up to the 6-story, and then the very articulated building beyond that. This is a couple of views of some interior common spaces within the resort residential building, the lobby, a games room, a lounge, a movie theater, and a simulated golf room. These images are intended to convey the pool courtyard area. They're not specifically Sunseeker, but these are precedent images. There will be a pool, there will be the outdoor kitchen area and the deck and so on, as you can see in this image. I just didn't have a color picture to show you, but did want to communicate that these amenities are planned for the Sunseeker building. This is the Sunseeker courtyard area rendered, as you can see, gardens, gathering, outdoor areas, common spaces to relax, etc. I want to close by just noting that in having the opportunity and the privilege to build Sunseeker, there will be a number of economic benefits delivered to the town and to the community, as set out in a report completed by the Altus group. So summarized here, $4.6 million in development charges and education development charges distributed across the town, the county, and the school boards, as shown on the slide. Almost $500,000 worth of building permit revenues to the town. Jobs in the order of 580 person years of employment during the construction of the project. This project is expected to take 2 years to build, so that would amount to employment for 290 people in each of those 2 years. Additionally, I talked earlier about gross domestic product and the economy being down, and this little project on its own would generate 53 million in GDP. For the town, there would be an increase of property tax assessment to the tune of 107 million, and property tax revenues on an annual basis, just over $1 million, again, distributed across the town, the county, and to school boards. Finally, spending by the owners of the Sunseeker units can be expected to generate 15, almost 16 million annually. Obviously, a significant portion of this spending would be in the town at local stores and businesses as people spend time in their units. So in summary, Madam Mayor, the application conforms to the planning framework, supports the continued evolution and success of the resort, generates continued economic activity in the town and broadly in the county. And partnership led by managing partner Jim DeGasperis remains committed to the continued evolution and success of the resort, even during these times of great uncertainty. And that concludes our presentation, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm now going to go to questions and comments from council. I'm going to ask council's concurrence, just because I think there is significant public interest in this application. If we can maybe do one round with council first and then go to the public, and then we'll have opportunity for council to ask and comment more at the end. Is that acceptable for everyone? I'm seeing a few nods. Okay, so who wants to go first? Councillor Orsett.
Thank you. So I will thank you for the presentation and the visuals. I just want to focus on the hotel. Previously, it was approved for the western location, Site A. When you speak about the designed to protect the views of the hotel before were the nature area, and it seemed more hidden from the public and that. And I'm just wondering, changing it to the east area, is it not more visible to the residents, residential homes to the east, West Street? I'm thinking all that forest and then the homes that are there, because there's quite a few homes. So I'm just wondering why, I'm trying to understand the need to change it from there, other than the addition request to have the Sunseeker building.
Sure.
Your worship, through you to Councillor Orsatti, thank you for that question. The prompting to move the hotel to the east end of the boardwalk really came because we felt that was the better place for it to be. It wasn't to allow Sunseeker to go at the west end. It got moved because with the passage of time and you know, as this resort is operating and we're seeing how it's functioning, it became apparent to us that that corner with marina exposure is where a hotel wants to be. From a functional point of view, a hotel doesn't want to sit in behind the lake club, for example. That marina exposure is important. We took a look, as Mr. Janae explained, the cross sections. Can you see them? I put them back on the screen. Do you see my screen? Okay, so this shows on the right hand side of this page is West Street, and on the left hand side, you're looking from the right to the left is from east to west. And so if you're on West Street, you will not see the hotel building. The height of the land in between is what prevents any view of this hotel structure at 6 stories because of the intervening lands. So from that point of view, Councillor Orsatti, there will be, the residents on West Street will not see anything different.
Just one follow-up, Your Worship, on the hotel. And Ms. Shindrick, is there an intention, as council, we were always, looking forward to a hotel conference center, and now it's just referred to as a hotel. Is there an intention to change it from a conference center?
Your worship, through you to Councillor Orsatti, it's just shorthand, Councillor Orsatti. We still are hopeful and want to have a conference function on the site. We see it as a good addition to the resort, as of course we do see the hotel ultimately.
Thank you. I'll let others speak then.
Thank you. And I just want to confirm that the very original design showed the hotel on that side. Then we were asked to move it to the other side. Now we're asked to move it back over again. Is that correct?
You are absolutely correct.
Thank you. Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Worship. I believe Councillor Nicol was before me, if he'd still like to go.
No, you go ahead.
All right, perfect. With this presentation, everything looks really nicely laid out. It looks like it's with a pretty little bow, but I have some concerns that arise beyond the boundaries of Friday Harbor. When we're talking about the accepted height envelope, nothing in the bylaw stated anything over 4 stories. Now you're asking for a receded levels as you go up to 6. Now you claim that the land beside the hotel where you're going to be moving it will be blocking any potential sight lines, light pollution along those lines. But what happens when that land gets changed, altered, developed? Then you now have a hotel you cannot move, where it affects long beyond the boundaries. It's closer to the West Beach, which is going to cause significant issues with the residents. There's going to be heads butting over that. I can guarantee you that right now. And the one thing that seems clear to me is that the hotel was moved to protect the sightlines of the High Point and Aquarius buildings, I believe you referred to them as. So what you're doing is, in theory, looks nice, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, you're protecting the High Point and the Aquarius views at the cost of the potentially of the residents outside the boundaries of Friday Harbor. It gives them closer access to amenities that are already being disputed. It's further away from the initial access to Friday Harbor, so there's going to be more traffic on Big Bay Point Road. There's so many issues just by moving it over from a centralized location. You're removing all the insulation, and I just don't see it ending well. Thank you.
Ms. Schindrock, did you want to respond?
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you to Councillor Fowler. Number of things you've mentioned in there. I would say that the 6-story permission, first of all, is in the zoning bylaw for hotel uses, Councillor Fowler. We are seeking to utilize that height permission that was established at the West End by additional stepping in the building and by lining the building up in a way that, as I mentioned, protects the views from for the buildings to the north, the High Point and Aquarius buildings. So we're taking the 6-story height and placing it in strategic places on the building site. And you know, as you can see in this image here, the majority of the site, or half of the site, is at 2 stories. And so we've sort of just remodeled the building to accommodate an appropriate sized development, and also be mindful of the context and our neighbors, and also to have that additional stepping to create an attractive or so that it fits in well with its context. With regard to the hotel on the other side, so the 6-story permission is there for the hotel use in the zoning bylaw. And so we're taking advantage of that. And maybe I'll pull this other drawing up here. So again, you can see how it sits there well. With respect to the intervening lands, and if something should happen there, it's really the landform that is already protecting the residents on West Street. So I shouldn't expect that, regardless of what happens, if anything happens on the intervening lands, that it would change that. With regard to traffic on Big Bay Point Road, with the implementation of the traffic circle that we talked about briefly earlier, there will be an opportunity to provide clear signage, particularly at the time when a hotel does come to the site, to direct hotel traffic, to ensure that we're being very clear that the way to the hotel is via Friday Drive. So, you know, we will definitely work with the town to mitigate those traffic impacts on Big Bay Point Road.
Thank you. Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Your Worship. I did have 7 questions and comments, but a couple have been knocked off already, thanks to Councillor Asadi and Councillor Fowler. I won't go through them all. I'll take my turn, but I don't expect any response at all tonight. Again, I had quite a few questions. After years to get to this point, according to section 8.11.6 of the OPA 17 regarding the building heights, it states that only the hotel on Schedule O is permitted to be up to 6 stories in height. All the other buildings could be only a maximum of 4 stories. So I have concern when we're suddenly shifting, as Cheryl indicated, taking advantage of moving the hotel to gain another 2 stories in another condo area. So, I heard concerns about the hotel industry, but in just the 2 terms I've been on council, as I remember, Friday Harbor has moved the hotel and conference center at least once before, apparently to better service the resort. And it has already bumped the bill to that hotel at least once in order to permit additional condos first. To me, this hotel should have already been built years ago. So does or will this application guarantee that the hotel would be next to be built regardless? Or will this application have any impact on phasing as well? Or will Friday Harbor be back again asking to build condos first? I think any change should include the completion of the hotel and the recreational center next. So I do have a couple of comments, but I'll wait my turn.
Thank you, Councillor Nicol. Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Nicol. Well, the 6-story permission for hotels has been in the zoning bylaw from 2007. And with respect to the 6-story residential at the West End, you know, I guess I would just reiterate that what we're trying to do is sort of stack up the resort units. And rather than having a 4-story building, stacking them up, taking advantage of the 6-story height that's been assessed there already, in order to mitigate any impacts to the north, the High Point and Aquarius buildings. So we are seeking that height increase as part of the zoning amendment. We would hope that you would see the merit in it based on the submissions that we've made.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Councillor Waters?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just two concerns. The first concern happens to be with Councillor Nichols' comment about the additional stories. Would you, your current unit number is supposed to be 1350, and you're going up to 1500. If you didn't get those 2 extra stories in both those buildings, would you come in on target with those numbers? And I'll let you answer that question. Then I have a second follow-up question on an entirely different item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Waters. In terms of the phasing numbers, there's 100 units available to go to 1350. The building is not viable without the additional unit permissions. So there is no 100-unit building. It's a 250 unit approximately building, which is why we're asking for the 1500, the increase to 1500.
Okay. My second question happens to be, and correct me if my statement I'm about to make is wrong, but the new location for the hotel was to be the amphitheater, if I'm correct, what I heard, and the amphitheater is being moved to the middle of the marina. My question, what was the capacity of the amphitheater originally, and has that capacity been limited because the fact you're moving it into a really constrained site where the numbers for any type of small concerts is going to be limited on that pier in terms of for safety purposes? So I'm just asking whether or not the numbers have changed for that amphitheater from its original position to where it's going to be going in the middle of the marina.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Waters. The capacity is roughly the same. There's different formats, you know, for seating, standing, and that sort of thing, but it's very similar to the description in the secondary plan. And this location has the added benefit of allowing for enjoyment of activities, performances, etc., on the pier from boats. From the units that are surrounding the pier, as you can see in this image here in the background, as well, flipping around the other way in the foreground. Of course, you've got the boardwalk, the units that align the boardwalk. So the ability to enjoy what's going on the in the amphitheater today in this location, it's actually been enhanced. The numbers have been enhanced without having that crush of people all in one place.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Genet, did I see your hand?
You did. Thanks very much. And Cheryl, if it's okay with you, I just wanted to jump in on this question of height and take people back to 2015 when council saw its way clear to providing a 6-story height permission for residential buildings on the east side when the hotel was first moved. So this ask for 6 stories residential, where it's already permitted in terms of a height envelope, it's not really new, and it's been found to conform to the secondary plan already, again in 2015, and so it's not really a new ask. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Genet.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I'm just wondering, is the amphitheater going to be available for everyone that goes to Friday Harbor, or is it just going to be for homeowners and guests of homeowners?
Your Worship, through you to Deputy Mayor Davidson. No, it will be a publicly accessible space, Deputy Mayor.
And a follow-up, Your Worship? The hotel that you're proposing due to the economic down slump in the hotel industry, my question is the hotel, and they're very common in Florida and areas where it's like a lobby you go into, but it's basically an Airbnb complex where people buy them and then rent them out through the hotel front concierge service. Is that what kind of hotel you're proposing?
Your Worship, through you to Deputy Mayor Davidson, the specifics of the hotel, Deputy Mayor, are not proposed today. It's the general use provision that we're seeking in that location at the east end. The details around how the hotel, how it actually would look, and I can't say that we're certainly not looking to have an Airbnb hotel. I'm not even sure I know what that is, but we are looking to have a conventional hotel on the property.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that has a question or comment for the first round? Or you want to go to a second round? Just before you do, I'm going to ask one question and then we'll go to second round. So I wanted to address the elephant in the room. So there seems to be a lot of belief for residents in Big Point that the property to the east, which was there was an application for a golf course there, that property, and I'll read actually one of the comment sheets that we got in here. It says, the Big Bay Golf Club has been denied to Next 9 plan to expand their golf course. That area is now considered to be sold to Friday Harbor for condos and townhouses. So is it Friday Harbor's intent to try to purchase the land to the east?
Thank you for that question, Your Worship. We have no intention of purchasing that land. We've not made any gestures to do so. We have the land that we require for the resort as designed on the site that is owned by Friday Harbor.
Thank you. Second round now. I haven't seen any more hands. And then I'd like to give the public an opportunity. I don't want to curtail any questions from council. I don't want you to think I'm trying to do that. I simply want to make sure that people who have been very patient now for an hour and a half get an opportunity. Okay. So Councillor Nicol, then Councillor Sadi, and then we'll go to the public.
Your Worship, I only have a couple more comments anyway. So, and again, I don't need answers tonight, but I appreciate them anyways. Looking at the plan here, is the highlighted box around Site B intentionally including to absorb the existing roadways? Because on Site A, it strictly encompasses just the block, but not the roadways. So is there an intent to change that entire roadway structure into that Sunseeker or into that area there towards the beach club?
Your Worship, may I respond to Councillor Nicol? Yes. Can you see my screen? I've got the zoning map up. The intention is to bring a road down into the hotel as a turnaround, and then to have perhaps a cross access point here over to Van Dutch and down. This was always an access point. As you may know, we've had this road coming down this way and cutting over. We would be looking to either break it over here, but certainly there would be a roundabout we expect coming down to provide a drop off to the hotel.
And final word to Councillor Sadi, and then we'll go to the public.
Thank you. So I just need a little bit of clarification here, because is there two hotels? Because in the report from staff, it says that the approved hotel is to be moved from Site A to Site B to permit the hotel in the southern portion with the 6 stories that was previously approved for height, and permission for a hotel and residential use in a 5-story building on the northern portion. So is that 2 hotels, or is that the residential Sunseeker? And does that mean that it's rental? I'm just a little confused on that. Thank you.
Sure. Through you, your worship, to Councillor Orsatti. So what we're doing is seeking the permission for hotel on the purple piece. And in this piece here, because I'm not entirely sure whether the hotel might go a little bit further into further north, we've asked for the ability to have the hotel cross that line, perhaps come into the orange area. And then whatever the balance would be available for a resort residential. We envision that there could be apartments that are branded with the hotel that might be connected to the hotel, but be different from the hotel. So that's what this is intended to try and accomplish ultimately.
So it's one hotel, just a different footprint.
Yeah, with residential to the north, and again, not knowing exactly where that line might be. The site plan for the hotel footprint may actually go over that line slightly, so it may not, but we're just allowing for that possibility.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear from those members of the public who have been patient and have questions regarding the proposed amendment before council votes on receiving the report and all comments provided during this meeting. The speaker order is now going to come up on the screen. When it's your turn, to be fair, we'd ask that everybody keep their initial comments to 5 minutes to give everybody an opportunity to ask questions or state your concerns, and town staff will be capturing your comments as we progress. Once your 5 minutes is up, please turn off your video and audio and I will call on the next speaker. Once all the speakers on the list have spoken, if you have additional comments at that time, you'll have the opportunity to turn on your video and raise your hand again. And I'll call the speaker's name and ask that they turn on their audio. And then you'll have an additional 5 minutes opportunity. So during the meeting, once you have provided your comment, you may remain in the meeting, but please turn your audio and video off. You may also leave the meeting and watch on the town's YouTube channel, whatever you prefer. So I will now ask the first person on the list, Ann Hunt, to please turn on your video and audio and state your name for the record. Welcome to Ann Hunt. I do not see Ann Hunt here. So we'll go to the next name, Michelle Simpson. Michelle Simpson, are you here? I hope you didn't get Oh, there you are. Hi, Michelle. Yes.
Hi. All right. Okay. Good evening to you, Mayor, and all council members, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak tonight. I'd like to state my opinion that I am opposed to moving the hotel to the new proposed location. First of all, everyone who purchased land in our small, quiet community on Big Bay Point did that as we love the area and the quietness of it, away from all the hustle and bustle. When Friday Harbor was first proposed, it was agreed upon and it was very different than what we see now. As time goes by, there is constant incremental changes and additions being made. I know everyone here, including the Friday Harbor community, comes to escape and enjoy the peaceful lifestyle that we have here. I feel the proposed hotel move is, if it is approved to the new location, we will suffer the consequences of light pollution and noise pollution with it being so close along the tree line. Along with the condos they plan to build there, we will lose everything dear to us that brought us to this wonderful area of Innisfil. It would be unfair to the rest of the Big Bay community who loves to enjoy this area. All of us in the closer part of the area can hear everything from the pier as it is. Last summer and summers prior, maybe not last summer, but summers prior, when there was events happening with live music, we could hear absolutely everything as if it was right on our street. So I just assume that that would also go for the noise pollution that would come from a hotel. As well, I believe it will cause more traffic 100% on Big Bay Point Road. I guarantee that they won't be using the Friday Harbor main entrance on 13th line. And that could be dangerous with the increase of traffic, the speed that people are doing since Friday Harbor has been built down there. Secondly, when Friday Harbor first started building, our water table was disrupted over here, and many residents in our area, all of us that are on wells, we had a lot of disruptions. We ended up having to have a second well drilled within the first year of Friday Harbor's construction. So if this were to happen again, we would like there to be a clause added that there would be a provision, either Friday Harbor or town would compensate any of us for having the cost of having another well drilled yet again. I would be worried about the height of the building, that it would be more than likely be able to be seen regardless of what's said. Sure, right now when the trees are nice and full of leaves, maybe we won't be able to see it, but once those leaves are gone off those trees, we will probably be able to see it, and that will affect our property values. I hope that everyone can see where we're coming to and take this all into consideration before making any final decisions. As I listened to Councillor Fowle speak, I really did agree with a lot he had to say, regarding West Street beach issues, their own beach issues, where it's just not big enough for the residents as is, and then you're going to add in so much more, so much closer. And he's right. If anything gets developed along the tree line, then for sure we will be able to see the hotel, and then there's nothing we'll be able to do about it at that point. And that's everything I have to say for tonight. I thank you all for listening, and I wish you all well.
Thank you so much, Ms. Simpson. Appreciate that very much. Next is Mr. Joseph Greco. And I'm not seeing Mr. Greco's name on the screen. So we'll go next to Michael Felinski. I think maybe we kept people waiting a little bit too long and they might have dropped off. Next is Paul Catling. Mr. Catling. Next is Ankit Sharma. If any of these people are watching and wish to submit, you can submit your comments in writing at any time, and we'll make sure that they're taken into account. Maggie Yedikin, I'm sure I said that wrong. Maggie, are you on here? No. Lawrence Glazier. Lawrence Glazier. Okay, finally, I see Thomas Baldwin is here. Oh, there's Lawrence Glazier. Yes, I see you. If you want to turn on your
yeah, I'm just doing it. It takes a moment or two.
Sorry, Mr. Glazier.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor and councillors, for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm an architect. I've been asked by a number of residents to make a submission on their behalf. They have signed a letter that's been filed with council pertaining to concerns about traffic and the impact that the change is going to have on the current increases that are going on Big Bay Point Road. In the May 16th, 2018 report that was filed to support the zoning changes by Friday Harbor, there was neighborhood concern noted about the traffic on Big Bay Point Road in the 14th line. The page 19 of that report specifically stated there'd be no fundamental impact on the traffic on Big Bay Point Road. And in looking at the BA Group report, which was included as a background for this particular application, the report says that there is not expected to result in an impact on future traffic volumes, and that visitors are expected to use the Friday Drive access. Well, the reality is that there is already the impact on traffic on Big Bay Point Road, both in volume and in speeds. And the impact is such that I believe there have been pedestrian accidents over the past number of years. And the residents that do use Big Bay Point Road for pedestrian activity or for walks are really in a little bit more danger than in the previous years. The original site plan layout for Friday Harbor, to the best of my recollection understanding, identified the most easterly access off of Big Bay Point Road, which is Sunreef Avenue, as fundamentally a service entrance for providing truck access and deliveries to the site. And as been stated here, residents and guest traffic was designated to use the main entrance off of off of the 13th line, which is called Friday Drive. With more of the development coming online, users of the resort have increasingly elected to use Sunreef Avenue as a preferred entrance and exit to the property. And I note that we actually looked at it this particular weekend, that Google Maps, the GPS systems that people are starting to use in their cars, are directing people to use the easterly entrance, which is Sunreef Avenue, for accessing retail such as Starbucks. And it would hold true for the proposed development as well. I think that as the way that those apps work, the more people use them and utilize those particular routes, the more ingrained they become. And irrespective of any roundabouts, that would not, resolve the problem of the increased traffic on Big Bay Point Road. So there's with the increase in volume and speed, I think that it's incumbent on Innisfil to address ways of containing these problems. And in our correspondence, we've made a couple of observations and recommendations that I think that the traffic planning should take a serious look at. Now, with the original intent of Sunreef to be a service access, it potentially should be controlled. Friday Harbor right now has control gates to manage the way that some traffic is utilizing the site, and I think that it's reasonable that potentially Sunreef should be restricted from having access by visitors and guests or residents, and it should be maintained and restricted to being a service entrance. That can be done with the gates and having no exit signs to control the amount of traffic that's able to penetrate into Big Bay Point and exit from the property to use Big Bay Point Road. That would go a long way to helping to help try and direct the traffic back onto the Friday Harbor Drive. I'd also comment that notwithstanding the intended design of the interior traffic to use Friday Harbor, the moment they hit the development area, even at this point with only a partial development of the site, there is extensive traffic and parking, which slows down and for lack of a better word, people get impatient and there's some frustration. And after doing that a couple of times, you're going to see people scooting out and coming around and avoiding Friday Harbor, our Friday Drive, and using Big Bay Point Road to come around and avoid the traffic to get to the easterly side of the property. So we would recommend that that be something to be seriously looked at. In addition, speed control should be added to Big Bay Point Road from Sunreef to the intersection of the 13th line and 25th side road to slow traffic down, whether that be by stop signs, speed bumps, corduroying the asphalt to force vehicles to reduce speed. I think that would go a long way to helping to make it a lot safer than it currently is, because the roadway is getting dangerous. And if any of the members of council actually go out on the road, they can see that there's actually been speeding. There's tire marks on the road from cars racing as well. Another item that might be considered is reducing the speed limit on Big Bay Point Road from Sunreef to the new roundabout that's been spoken about tonight. That would help deter the dangerous speeds on the roadway and maybe force some of the people to go back to the main entrance to the resort. The shoulders on Big Bay Point Road also, if at all possible, should be considered to be enhanced for pedestrians and bicycles, because with the increased population at Friday Harbor, as well as the current residents at Big Bay Point, it might make it a lot safer than people jogging along the edge of the road or riding the bicycle on the road and having to have traffic and trucks navigate around the residents using the roadway, you know, where cars are actually intended to be. And finally, it would be helpful if council could put a request into South Simcoe Police Services to have a more robust monitoring of the speeds on the roadway to deter the worst of the speeding that is ongoing, ongoing on the roads right now. So that's this submission is on behalf of a number of residents that have signed the letter, our letter, and quite a few others who expressed support, but were somewhat concerned about having their names put on the paperwork being submitted to the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glazier. We all did get a copy of your letter, and I would also invite you to share some of your concerns with our traffic safety committee that addresses things similar to what you're talking about, things like engaging South Simcoe Police and getting radar signs up and doing speed and traffic counts on that road as well. So we invite you to do that as well. But thank you for being here and thank you for your comments. And finally, Thomas Baldwin. Hi, Mr. Baldwin.
Hi, and am I muted or on?
Loud and clear. We've got you.
Thank you very much. I've lasted throughout, and your list of speakers seems to have collapsed. So I'm the neighbor immediately to the east of Big Bay Point on the shore. My family has properties along that stretch. We are separated from the Friday Harbor development by what is known as Block B, which is a sort of a access that goes from West Street to the west and then south to the lake, which it was my understanding was a trust owned by a trust established by the person who subdivided the subdivision that encompasses West Street and South Street and so forth, to provide access to the lake for the residents of that subdivision. We have been on our property on Minnetonka Road, immediately east of the property, the marina, since 1976, when we used to see sailboats and old sedan cruisers come and go out of the marina. With the passage of time and progress, things have changed a lot. What concerns us relative to this proposal that you're considering tonight, we're concerned about the density and the number of people who are using the Friday Harbor Beach, which is immediately adjacent to us. There's a great deal of activity with personal watercraft. We have no difficulty with the boats that have ingress and egress to Friday Harbor through the marked channel. But there is an incredible number of people who are using the beach to launch canoes, stand-up paddle boards, and so forth. And a lot of them get into distress along our beach. And we would try to be concerned to have some controls placed on the activity that runs immediately along the shoreline from the beach to the east along the south shore of Big Bay Point. And it gets very noisy. And I'm a little concerned about the amphitheater that we will be on the receiving end of rock concerts. But that is something which the sound bylaws will probably take care of adequately for us. Throughout the years since we attended the first meeting in 2000 for the original Big Bay, the marina proposal, we were generally in favor of it, particularly because one of the conditions that was agreed to was that water and sewage would be extended from Big Bay Point, from Friday Harbor, what is now called Friday Harbor, to the people out on Big Bay Point. That seemed to be promised to be happening sometime soon, but it's dropped off the map completely. So we're all forced to maintain septic systems and so forth. We've never had Friday Harbor contact us or reach out to us in any respect. And we would really appreciate if Friday Harbor would try to be a little bit more neighborly. It's a little distressing. And we would just like to see a little bit less activity in front of our cottage emanating from the Friday Harbor Beach. And that's, I think I can speak for neighbors a few doors to the east, because we all suffer a great deal of water traffic on our shores.
Thank you, Mr. Baldwin, very much. And I will tell you that the council has had delegations come to us from residents that utilize that West Street Beach. And I know that it's been before council, and I know staff are working with the Friday Harbor to try to resolve some of those issues. And I very much appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor and Council.
Thank you. So with that, I will ask if any of the names that I called out earlier, if you've just had trouble getting on, there's opportunity, or if any of you have more you'd like to add, that's the end of our list. So you have another opportunity if there's anything new that you'd like to add. Seeing none, I will ask if there's been any emails or telephone calls that have been received by the clerk's office during this meeting.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, actually, we've received a few emails this evening. We've received emails from Michael White, Jacqueline Beath, and Megan Varga, all expressing their opposition to the amendment. Those emails will be circulated to council and to planning staff tomorrow. We also received an email from Shell Goldstein, who has asked that I ask the following questions. Has construction commenced for the new residential building in Site B? Is what going into the hole currently being dug in the northeast corner of the property? And then she has a question prior to approval by town. I also received an email from Kara Rogers, who requested that I read the following out loud. She states, all for the growth in our town, not at the expense of our youth and community, sidewalks and bike lanes, Big Bay Point, 13th line. Expressing opposition against that as well. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. So did you get those questions, Cheryl? One was whether or not construction had started on, I think it was the Sunseeker, was it? Site B? Which one was Site B?
Site B would be the hotel site.
Okay.
So the answer is no. What Ms. Goldstein may be referring to is the Friday Harbor Administration Building on Sunreef, south of Big Point Road, north of the Site B.
Thank you. Thank you. And those rest of those comments will come to us and will form part of the response.
Your Worship, did you want me to respond to any of those comments tonight?
If you wish.
There are a few that I certainly can respond to immediately. Starting with Mr. Baldwin, certainly we are, as you alluded to, Your Worship, working with town staff to find some resolution with the beach matter and to manage that. I know Hanny and his team are certainly liaising with your staff, so we will continue to do so. And we will be pleased to reach out to Mr. Baldwin and his neighbors and speak with him about their firsthand experiences so that we're ensuring we're understanding what those impacts are. I would also note that with respect to Mr. Glazer's comments, I suspect the reason that Friday Drive may not be coming up on Google Maps searches yet, maybe because it's a relatively new street, and with the passage of time that should change, and we can see whether there's anything we can do about that. But I would reiterate the traffic circle and the signage that we'll be able to do with that, and the direct traffic to Friday Drive to the greatest extent possible. On Ms. Simpson's comments with regard to light pollution, I would just note that all development on the property is subject to dark sky guidelines and compliance. So whatever ultimately is proposed on that location, Site B, the hotel site, would be subject to those dark sky requirements. And the other point I would note is that the land really does slope down as you go from Big Bay Point Road towards the marina. So that building does sit at a lower elevation, which is why, as Mr. Janae showed in the cross sections, you cannot see the building from Big Bay Point Road. I will reach out to Ms. Simpson about her comment about her water table, the water table and her wells. We will be delighted to speak to her and find out a little more about that. And again, the West Street beach issues, we're working with town staff to find the best solution there.
Thank you, Ms. Schindrick. I'll now go back to council because I felt like I didn't give everyone the opportunity. So we've got a few more cards. Deputy Mayor Davidson and Councillor Sadi.
Thank you, Your Worship. Oh, my phone's been going steady through this conversation, let me tell you. Holy cow. So I'm hearing lots of comments coming through from the neighborhood, and I appreciate them too, but I do want to clear up one thing. I do not have any financial interest in Friday Harbor, nor did I ever have financial interest in Friday Harbor. So let's clear that board right now. So those who are spreading that rumor, I think you need to curtail that one pretty fast. I'm here on the point. I've been here almost 40 years. I respect my community. With the traffic that I see happening, I'm going to be honest, a lot of it I think are employees working at Friday Harbor. I go in and out several times. You see the time of days, it's between 7:30 and 11:30 in the morning. Your life is at risk heading out of the point because they come flying out of Sunreef. I don't know if they know what a stop sign is or they're blind, because they do not stop at Sunreef when coming out on the Big Bay Point Road. And when you're coming into the point, they will pass you just past the 2-mile turn or before the 2-mile turn because they're late for work. So I think there really has to be an education problem with the employees who are working at Friday Harbor because I've seen it. I've been cut off numerous times. That Sunreef entrance exit is a nightmare. So I think the people do have a point there. And I'll follow up with more later. I've made notes on everybody that's spoken. I've seen all your letters and your comments coming in quite rapidly at the moment. So when council deals with this, hopefully in late May, early June, I can speak a little bit more and clear up some concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just, I'm going to ask staff, I doubt very much there'll be anything coming back late May, early June, seeing it's already past mid-May, but I'll ask the planners if they have any idea when they think something might be coming back. Ms. Nordstrom or Mr. Thank you, Ms. Nordstrom.
Yeah, thank you through you, Your Worship. Yeah, we will not, we need to take in the comments that we've heard tonight and work with Friday Harbor in terms of a thorough, and complete responses to all of the comments that we've heard tonight. So there will not be a report that will be coming back in May or early June. The earliest that we would anticipate a report coming back would be end of June.
Thank you very much. And for all those that are sending the messages to the Deputy Mayor, please copy town staff as well to make sure that the planners get a copy of those comments also so they can be addressed in the report. Councillor Arsadi.
Thank you. I just wonder when this report comes back to council. I think it would be helpful to have a time frame history of the hotel from its original approved site location for B, the request to move it from B to A and the reason, and we have the current request now to move it back to B. Also, I would like to also, I'm sure that when it was originally approved for site B, there must have been some solutions, recommendations, and how Friday Harbor was going to address sound and noise control for a hotel in that location. If there was something in that report, I'd like to see that in an upcoming report. If there was no solutions to that, then possible ones in the future report. And then just a comment on the hotel conference center. I know you had referenced, Ms. Schindrick, about how many jobs it's provided in the construction industry. And I think a lot of that comes from firms where many of the people are outside the area, but a hotel and a conference center employs a lot of local people. And I think that, that's where, not only does it provide a different service, and I know that you had mentioned that it would be 2024 before that industry gets going again, but I'm sure that it takes several years to get a hotel built, up and running. But it's about offering our residents local employment that I think is important. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Seti. Councillor Fowler.
I apologize, Your Worship. I had a bit of technical issue there during Councillor Sardi's question. So if I do ask the same question, it's not intentional. When we first spoke, you made a mention earlier, Your Worship, of how the hotel was moved previously. And I was wondering what was the mentality and the reasoning behind the initial move? And then if it was done to resolve an issue, why place it back in the same place that would cause the issue that forced it to be moved in the first place?
Ms. Schindler?
It wasn't moved through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Fowler. It wasn't shifted to deal with any issue. It was located at the West End based on feedback we were getting at the time that would be a suitable location. But with the passage of time and further discussions with further people in the industry, we've been advised, we've learned that this location at the East End with marina exposure is more desirable. And so we're doing everything possible to provide that opportunity, that best opportunity for a hotel to come to the property. And it's as simple as that. All of the noise, sound, considerations will be had at the time that we're fortunate to have a proposal in hand, and then we would deal with those, the dark sky compliance, the noise requirements, mitigation requirements, all of those things would be dealt with at that time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nicol?
Your Worship, last question, just on the proposed Sunseeker new location. I just wondering why a setback is only proposed on the over the 4 stories, only on one face, and wonder why setbacks shouldn't be around the entire site over 4 stories, not to impact at least just any existing residents or any proposed residents coming around. So I wasn't quite sure why there would be only one side that would be limited or for setback, and why it shouldn't be all the way, instead of having that blocking set up as well over 4 stories. So, thanks.
Your Worship, through you to Councillor Nicol. Sunseeker actually has a multitude of setbacks. It steps from 1 story to 2 stories and then up to into the 4-story pieces. There are setbacks on the north side and on the south side. So the purpose of the request for the change to the bylaw requirement was to provide greater flexibility, and that based on the site, the context for the building. So the idea would always have setbacks, but to consider how they sit into the landscape and to give some flexibility to staff when they're reviewing an application.
Thank you, Ms. Schindler. Any final questions or comments from council? Councillor Waters?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just make one comment. When one of the residents was talking about speed into Big Bay Point and what Google says, I just thought, well, I'd give Google a shot and see what happens. So it is actually 2 minutes faster to take Big Bay Point into Friday Harbor than it does the other way. So anyone who's coming to Friday Harbor and they have Google and it tells them it's 2 minutes faster, human nature is going to dictate which route they're going to take. Even though there's a sign that says Friday Harbor this way, that's the direction they're going to go. So one of the recommendations was to reduce the speed along Big Bay Point Road, which would equal the timeout on Google Maps to the point that it's no different. So it might be, it's perception which pushes human nature. And if it's 2 minutes faster, and I'm guilty of it, and I'm sure many people are, is that if it's 2 minutes faster, that's the route I'm going. So I would suggest that then that's probably about the only way you're going to deal with Google Maps telling which way people should be going. So I think slowing down the speed along Big Bay Point would be one way to change or alter that behavior. So just a comment. Thank you.
Your Worship, that's a very interesting observation, and I'm sure that the algorithms for Google Maps do utilize the posted speed limits, and so it's very astute.
Thank you. I have to tell you personally, I always take Friday Drive. It's so beautiful and a decompression. It just kind of calms me down.
Perhaps we need to add a sign that says decompression chamber ahead.
All right, that was great conversation. I want to thank everybody for participating. So we'll now move on to the recommendation. All we're doing tonight is receiving report DSR 073-21 and all of the comments that you have provided this evening. So I'll ask council if I have a mover and a seconder, please. That's moved by Councillor Waters and seconded by Councillor Ices. All those in favor? That is carried. So I want to thank you for taking the time. I know it's been a bit of an evening to watch this live stream meeting and presentation regarding the proposed amendment. If you've not made oral or written submissions in regards to this proposal before a decision is reached, you should be aware that the local planning appeal tribunal may dismiss your appeal. But there is still time to reach out to the planning department. You heard Mr. Nordstrom say it would be at least a month before anything came back. Anyone who wishes to provide comment, oh, I already said that. And you can send any comments into the clerk's office at innisfil.ca. And also that puts you on the interested parties list so that you'll be notified when this item will come back for debate and vote at council. So council thanks everyone for your participation. Thank you very much. And now we'll move back to the confirming bylaw just to close off our procedure for this evening. So we need to pass the confirming bylaw for this evening, and that's moved by Councillor Orsatti, seconded by Councillor Van Berkel. All those in favor? And adjournment. That is moved by Councillor Nicol and seconded by Councillor Fowler. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you everyone for your participation. Great discussion. And we'll see you next week at our regular council.